I cheated on my girlfriend, she forgave me, but our relationship is falling apart. Hey Reddit. I messed up. I know I did. I cheated on my girlfriend, and even though she forgave me, things haven't been the same since. I don't even know why I did it. It wasn't like I was unhappy in our relationship or that she wasn't enough for me. If anything, she was more than enough, kind, loving, and always there for me. We had been together for 3 years, living together for 1, and for the most part, everything was great. But one stupid mistake, one moment of weakness, changed everything. It happened at a work party. I had a little too much to drink, and I ended up flirting with a coworker. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were at her apartment, doing something I knew I'd regret. The second it was over, I felt sick. I knew I had betrayed the one person who truly loved me, and for what? A meaningless moment that meant absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. I swore to myself I would take it to the grave, but the guilt ate me alive. I started acting distant, avoiding my girlfriend's eyes, making up excuses to stay late at work just so I wouldn't have to face her. She noticed, of course. She wasn't stupid. One night, after weeks of my odd behavior, she finally confronted me. She asked me if something was wrong, if I was seeing someone else. The way she looked at me, so hopeful, so desperate for me to say no, shattered me. I couldn't lie anymore. I admitted everything. I expected her to scream, to throw things, to pack her bags and walk out. But she didn't. She just sat there, staring at me with tears in her eyes. Then she asked why. And that was the worst part, I didn't have an answer. She cried herself to sleep that night, and I just lay there, listening to her sobs, knowing I'd caused this. The next morning, she told me she wasn't ready to throw away 3 years over one mistake. She wanted to try and forgive me, to move past it. At first, I was relieved. I thought that if she was willing to forgive me, we could eventually go back to how things were. But I was wrong. Nothing was the same. She tried. I could see that she really, really tried. But the trust was gone. She would check my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. If I got a message late at night, she'd glance at the screen, her face tensing up. If I was 5 minutes late coming home, she'd ask me where I had been, who I was with. She never used to do that before. She used to trust me completely. Now, I could see the doubt in her eyes every time I kissed her goodnight. We stopped being affectionate the way we used to be. Before, she'd always hold my hand when we walked down the street, kiss me randomly while we were watching TV. Now, it felt forced, like she was doing it out of obligation rather than love. The worst part was the way she looked at me. Before, her eyes used to light up when I walked into a room. Now, there was always this sadness behind them, like she was constantly reminding herself of what I had done. Intimacy became rare. At first, she tried to pretend like nothing had changed in that aspect, but I could tell her heart wasn't in it. Eventually, she just stopped initiating anything, and I didn't push. I couldn't. I knew she wasn't comfortable, and I didn't blame her. She told me she was trying to move past it, but I knew she was struggling. And honestly, I hated myself for it. She started spending more time with her friends, going out more. I didn't question it, I figured she needed space. But then, one night, she came home late, and I noticed the way she smelled. It wasn't her usual perfume. It was cologne. My heart sank, but I didn't say anything. I didn't have the right to. I had ruined our relationship, and if she was finding comfort elsewhere, I couldn't blame her. Then, a few weeks later, I saw it. A text on her phone from some guy named Mark. Nothing explicit, but the way he said, "Last night was amazing, can't wait to see you again," told me everything I needed to know. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. My first instinct was anger, but then I realized, I had done the exact same thing to her. How could I be mad? This was my fault. I had opened this door, and now I had to live with the consequences. I didn't confront her right away. I needed time to process it. But eventually, I couldn't hold it in anymore. One night, while we were sitting on the couch, I just asked her, "Who's Mark?" She froze. For the first time in our relationship, I saw guilt in her eyes. I knew. She knew I knew. And just like that, we both realized we were done. She didn't try to deny it. She just sighed and said, "I didn't mean for it to happen. I needed to feel wanted again." And that hurt more than anything. Because I realized then that I had broken something in her that could never be fixed. We sat there in silence for a long time before she finally said, "I think we need to let this go." I nodded, because I knew she was right. We had been trying to hold on to something that was already gone. She moved out a week later. There was no big dramatic fight, no screaming or crying. Just a quiet, mutual understanding that we had destroyed what we had. I helped her pack, and when she left, she gave me one last look before whispering, "I really did love you." And then she was gone. I still think about her every day. I wonder if she's happier now, if she's moved on, if she's with Mark or someone else. And I wonder if she still thinks about me. But the truth is, it doesn't matter. Because I learned the hard way that some mistakes can't be undone, and some relationships don't survive forgiveness. And that's something I'll have to live with for the rest of my life.